Hello, this is Craig Camp, and welcome to Troon Talk, where we dig deeply into Demeter biodynamic and regenerative organic certified wine growing and farming at Troon Vineyard in Oregon's Applegate Valley. This is meant to be a podcast for those that aspire to, as the Regenerative Organic Alliance says, farm like the world depends on it. These interviews will be focused on our work here at Troon Vineyard, but will also include the work of other farmers committed to regenerative agriculture. And now for today's interview. I've belonged to many wine trade associations over the years, but none I've found more rewarding than the Rhone Rangers, a small group of several hundred wineries scattered throughout the United States that believes in and works in their vineyard to make world-class wines from the classic Rhone varieties. In today's episode, I'm very excited to have three guests that have all served as presidents of the Rhone Rangers and have dedicated many hours to building the reputation of these wines in the United States. We have Larry Schaefer from Tercero Wines in Santa Barbara, Tony Quealy from Thatcher Winery in Paso Robles, and Jason Haas, also from Paso Robles, at Tablas Creek, where many of these varieties first started in the United States. We hope you enjoy today's episode. So, what is unique about the Rhone Rangers is that most wine trade groups represent a region, where the Rhone Rangers actually represents an idea and a dedication to a group of wine varieties, making it a national organization with members from across the United States. So that it's really one of a kind. And for me, participating in the Rhone Rangers has been, it's this experience of a group of people that all share the same values and are, it's truly an organization that believes that a rising tide raises all ships. I've never been involved in an organization where people are so open and inclined to help each other with the idea of making the whole category better. So today, joining us are a group that are very involved in the Rhone Rangers, all of them having served as president, the board of directors of the Rhone Rangers. So joining us is Jason Haas of Tablas Creek. Hello, Jason.
Hey,
Paso.
Craig. You also served as president
Yes,
of the
I
board of
did.
Rhone
Yes,
Rangers,
that's
so
true.
don't sell
Yeah,
yourself
so the whole
short.
group, the whole group. This is all presidents today. Tony Quealy from Thatcher Winery, also in Paso Robles. Hi,
Hi,
Tony.
Craig. Thank you.
And Larry Schaefer from Tercero Wines in Santa Barbara. Hello, Larry.
Hey, Craig.
So the Rhone Rangers has actually got quite a history to it. It goes back to the mid '90s when some of the founders have started meeting informally, and then of course there was the famous Lone Ranger cover of the Wine Spectator with Randall Graham on it. So I wonder, we need to talk about the history, but I'd like everybody to kind of introduce themselves and talk about your winery a little bit. Maybe we start with Jason.
Sure. So I'm Jason Haas, second generation proprietor at Tablas Creek here in West Paso Robles. Tablas Creek was always a partnership designed to bring the inspiration of Châteauneuf-du-Pape to California. We're equally owned and run by my family and by the Perrin family of Château de Beaucastel and Famille Perrin and Miraval and all the other things they do in the Rhone Valley. And we got our start here in 1989. And one of the first things that we did was import cuttings of all of the principal Rhone varieties from Beaucastel. We're fortunate to have partners who, one of their claims to fame is that they have all of the traditional Châteauneuf-du-Pape grapes in their vineyard. And we figured that was an incredible starting point for us at Tablas Creek. So we brought in grapevines and helped kind of like as a side effect, a little bit of a positive but unintended consequence, really helped kind of spur the flourishing of a lot of that Rhone Rangers movement by deciding early on not to try to keep the grapevines proprietary, but instead to make them available to anybody who wanted to buy and plant them. So we are a vineyard, we're a winery. We were for a long stretch also a grapevine nursery where we were bringing in our own grapevines. And we now at this point still focus on the Rhone blends that we started on, sort of Chateauneuf du Pape inspired blends, but we also do now anywhere from 10 to 15 different varietal bottlings of some very obscure grapes many times, and try to spread the word about not just who we are, but the category, that Rhone Rangers category that we're so lucky to inhabit.
So Jason, to be a Rhone Ranger wine, you have to be 75% or more of the 22 varieties that are included in the Côte de Rhône appellation in France. I believe you have them all, or darn
We
close.
don't quite have all of the Côte de Rhône. We have all of the Chateauneuf du Pape varieties.
Yeah.
So we have 14 Chateauneuf du Pape varieties, plus Viognier and Marsanne. So we've got 16.
Okay. So great. Tony.
Yes, Tony Quayle. I am the general manager here at Thatcher Winery on the west side of Paso Robles as well, just around the corner from Talbot Creek. Our owner, winemaker Sherman Thatcher, established this brand in 2004 when he found this property off of Vineyard Drive, what is known as the Kentucky Ranch. And so we just had our 20-year anniversary last year, which is fantastic under that label. And the Rhone varietals have always been a focus for Sherman. The first two varietals that he made was Zinfandel and Syrah. And Syrah is just one of his absolute favorites. He has grown his focus over the years to play with almost all the 16 varietals that Jason has worked with, but also other unique varieties. We're not 100% focused on Rhone varietals, but it is a large focus for us for sure. And we're a small production, about 5,000 cases. So we make, a couple hundred cases of this, 50 cases of that. But still, kind of in love with the Rhone, being Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre as a base, and then going out and exploring Cinsault, Carignan, and some other really fun, unique varieties.
Wonderful. Larry.
Well, I'm the newbie here, I guess. So I started it in 2006, really wasn't able to concentrate on it entirely until 2014. I'm based here in Santa Barbara County. A fantastic place for Rhone varieties. We're definitely known for other varieties other than Rhones here, but I'm ecstatic about what we're able to do here. I started working with Rhones right off the bat. I started as a assistant winemaker at Fess Parker Winery, and they concentrate a lot on Rhones as well. But I've started working with Rhones actually with my master's thesis at UC Davis. I looked at tannin development in Syrah throughout the United States and actually in France and in Australia as well. It was a wonderful study, but it got me to get a great understanding of that specific variety and how it grows so differently. I chose Rhone varieties in this region specifically because I'm a fan of the underdog. Why do what everyone else is doing when you can do something different, especially grapes that do really well but may not be as well known? And that's kind of carried forth from there to now. I think I now work with about 12 different Rhone varieties. I have not gotten to the 16 because not all of them are available in Santa Barbara County as of yet. I do bottle all of them individually. So kind of the opposite of Taubles or what they do traditionally in the Rhone. I look at the individual varieties. I love working with those distinct varieties. I like to describe them as an orchestra. You got a little piccolo here and you got a French horn here, and they're beautiful on their own. They work well together, but it's really fun to showcase those individual varieties and show them off. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm the current president of the board, and I'm excited about what you guys have done to create the base that I get to build from at this point.
And I am the sole Oregon representative here with the California winery. So Trin Vineyard is in the Applegate Valley of Southern Oregon, up here in the mountains. We have 20 varieties on our 100-acre estate, but they're not all Rhone. The ones that aren't Rhone, though, are Tiburon, Negrette, Vermentino, things like that, and Tannat. So the rest are all Rhone, and that is our focus is on really several groups of blends that we work on, but we do other varieties too. So there's quite a breadth of wines here. Very exciting. So Jason, could you go into the history a bit?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's both fun and sometimes confusing about the Rhone Rangers as an organization is that it was a movement before it was an organization. And so there's both like official Rhone Rangers, things that are done by the organization itself. And then there's the more general term of sort of anyone who focuses on Rhone varieties in America. And the the term was originally coined to apply to Randall Graham. You mentioned the um, the Wine Spectator cover where Randall, who is always such a good sport, agreed to dress up in Lone Ranger gear and pose with a horse in 1989. And it was at that point very early in this movement. There were a few scattered producers from Sonoma to the Sierra foothills to Santa Barbara County. It was really before anything was going on much in Paso, even. And the there was, as you might expect for a movement like this, it was populated mostly by iconoclasts who often were not so interested in being a part of an organization. But they did like to get together and compare notes. There's a famous dinner that happened at La Lime's in Berkeley in the late 80s where all of the people who were growing Rhone varieties in America at that point, or in California, which was about a dozen producers, got together to bring their wines and compare notes. And the actual formal Rhone Rangers organization didn't get started until the late 90s, so about a decade after that, with the goal of trying to bring some focus to this category that by that point there were a few dozen wineries producing Rhone varieties in California, and to get together and showcase the wines at a big tasting in San Francisco. And it's kind of grown from there. It's been fun over the last couple of decades to see these additional nexuses spring up in places like Paso and Santa Barbara. And now more recently places like Oregon and Texas. So it is truly now a national organization. But in the beginning, it was this informal gathering of iconoclastic producers, many of whom we're lucky enough to still have with us today. People like Randall, people like Bob Lindquist from Coupe, people like Bill Easton from Domaine de la Terre Rouge, and then others who made wines for a long time and have retired more recently, like Steve Edmonds from Edmonds St. John. But it's a relatively young movement that we're still lucky to have a lot of the original founders, not just alive, but still making great wines.
So Jason, I have Tablas clones in my vineyard, and probably all of us have worked with them. That I mean, that part of the history of building these varieties in the United States has been the Tablas program of bringing in this budwood.
Yeah, we decided when we started Tablas Creek that what was available here in California was not broad enough, or we didn't think compelling enough to be what we wanted to focus our whole business on. I mean, there was good Syrah here, there was good Viognier here, there was good Marsanne here. There was Mourvèdre, there was Grenache, there was purportedly Roussanne. Turned out not to be Roussanne after a little bit of sleuthing later, but there were several varieties that just didn't exist in the United States. Nobody had planted Counoise, nobody had planted Grenache Blanc, nobody had planted Picpoul. And so when we started, we ended up making the decision to bring in everything from the Beaucastel estate. We started with 9 varieties, so 4 reds and 5 whites. So Mourvèdre, Grenache, Syrah, and Counoise, and then Roussanne, Marsanne, Viognier, Grenache Blanc, and Picpoul Blanc. And made the decision pretty early on that we weren't going to try to keep these proprietary, but instead we were going to make them available to the broader community, because we felt like that was the best thing that we could do to help ourselves thrive, is to be a part of a community that was making better and better wines and had more people in it, all helping to establish the category. So it's something that we're really proud to have contributed to. And I love going to Rhone Rangers tastings and having people walk up to our table saying, "Hey, you got to try this. This is your clone of Claret Blanche. Like, oh, you got to try this. This is your clone of Mourvedre." And I think you're right that it probably would have been a very different road for Rhone Rangers producers had we or someone like us not decided to bring in that full collection of Rhone varieties when we did.
You're making some wines now from some of those vineyards, right?
We have also started. So we are a mostly estate winery, and we were an entirely estate winery for the first 20 years of our existence. And then in 2010, decided that we should make use of the fact that we had these really cool vineyards in Paso Robles to do a tier of wines that would make it a little easier for us to bring new people into our world. So I think when we released them, we were selling them for $20 suggested retail, and a lot of it was poured by the glass. And so we were buying from about like 8 or 10 of those Paso Robles vineyards that had our vines in the ground to create a tier of wines called Patelin de Tables. And Patelin is just French slang for neighborhood. And that was really fun, but we weren't able to isolate those individual vineyards and explore the idea of place, that kind of French idea of terroir, in any of them, because they were blended together to make a wine that we could make in some quantity. So 3 years ago in 2022, we decided to expand that program to do some single vineyard bottlings of vineyards, mostly outside of Paso, that are planted to our cutting. So we've gotten to work with like the Zaca Mesa vineyard down in Santa Barbara County. We've gotten to work with the Hook Vineyard, which is in the Santa Lucia Highlands. We've gotten to work with the Finauti Vineyard and Shake Ridge Vineyard up in the Sierra foothills. So that has been one of the most fun little additions to what we've done in the past couple of years, because we've gotten to, first of all, explore outside of Paso Robles, which we'd never done before, but also show off how those clones kind of dive into and dig into the different terroirs in which they're planted, and express that in the wines. Oh, and I should tell you what those are called. Those are that tier of wines is called Lignée de Tables. So just Lignée, just meaning lineage.
Nice. So for most organizations, the most important thing that they do for their members are events. And Tony has been rather deeply involved in that. The Rhone Rangers experience, I think, is one of the more energetic, exciting wine events for consumers to attend. What always impresses me about it is how knowledgeable the consumers are that attend. You know, you very rarely have to explain what Marsanne is or Roussanne. These are people that are true believers. So, Tony, could you tell us about the events that you've been working so hard on?
Yeah. So the Rhone Rangers experience, this we just had our 17th annual Rhone Rangers experience. Should be 18, but we all know that 2021 we weren't allowed to have one. So we just held our 17th on March 22nd, and we held it at the Paso Robles Event Center here in Paso Robles. We had over 75 wineries participate. We had over 500 attendees. I think worth noting, it's not just a wine event; it's also a fundraising event as well. We do silent auctions, trying to raise money for scholarships for local, not maybe local, but universities in our area. Like last year, the participant won from Napa Valley College up in Napa Valley, California. So we try to focus our efforts on fundraising as well. It's a big event with 75 wineries, 500 people. You got a lot of details, a lot of I's to dot, T's to cross, and worth noting, it's all done by volunteers. You know, we have member wineries that want to help, and we have local community volunteers that are willing to come out and do all the small things for us as well. But we also have a executive director that works tirelessly for months. Kim Murphy Rodriguez, she makes sure that we are dialed in. So it's kudos to her that these events go off as well as they do. but we all work really hard. We like we've all alluded to, we all find value in this organization and the messaging and what we're doing to get the word out about Rhone varietals. And so we all work really, really hard. It's a big event, as I kind of touched on the day of. It can start with our seminar, where we have now expanded to 10 different categories at the seminar. We've got a sparkling focus. We have Viognier. We have an obscure white, and this year we focused on Claret Blanche. We do a Rhone white blend, a rosé, an obscure red, where this year was focused on Vaccarès. We do Grenache, Mourvedre, Syrah, and Rhone blends. And all these categories are chosen from a blind tasting from our committee. So there's about 10 to 12 of us that sit down and go through all the submissions. For me, it's the best day to be on the committee or be a part of this organization because you get to taste all these wonderful, wonderful wines. And it is very, very difficult to choose a single winery to represent one of these categories because everybody's doing amazing jobs. They all have their own voice on the variety, but it's a really, really fun day to be a part of. But so that's the seminar, and you get to listen to each winery talk, and it's moderated by an influencer, if you will, in our industry. And this year we had the pleasure of having Samantha Cole Johnston from JanssenRobinson.com, the U.S. editor. She did just a fantastic job of organizing that seminar and that discussion. And then after the seminar, we head over to a luncheon where it's almost tradition now, where we have our friend Chef Jeffrey Scott has been making food for us. And this is a vintners luncheon where we have over 30 wineries sit down and enjoy lunch with our guests. And so all the guests get to, pick the brains of all the winemakers and vintners at a lunch table over a meal, which is, what wine should be. We should be experiencing this all together over a meal. And then after the luncheon, we head over to our grand tasting. And like I said before, we had over 75 wineries participate this year, which is fantastic. All over California, Paso Robles, Santa Barbara, Ojai, Lodi, Sonoma, all came down. And then out of state, we had Arizona, Oregon, Texas, which is fantastic. We're seeing a really big influence from Texas come out and participate, which is super fun. One of the biggest things for me, and with all these wineries from different areas, is Thatcher gets to be put in the middle between Tatum Cellars from Texas to Ojai Vineyard, in Southern California. And we get to taste each other's wines, commiserate, and just talk about really just have a great time. So I absolutely love that aspect of this event. As I talked about earlier, this is a fundraising event, so we have a silent auction that helps us give back to the community. We had over 50 auction lots this year where we were able to raise a lot of money. For our guests, we also offer charcuterie plates to give them a little nosh to kind of have a little nibble while they're tasting through. And for all access people that have attended the seminar, the luncheon, and the grand tasting, we also have a really nice VIP section where they're able to sit down, and we'll bring in a winery to focus on their wines while they have a captive audience in that VIP section. So it's a fantastic event that has been growing for many years. As I said, 17. And back in the beginning, it was regionally focused, I would say, where Paso Robles kind of was the focus. But now, seeing that we're a national organization, we love seeing different states, different areas come out and present their wines as well.
And the experience is always at the fairgrounds in Paso Robles. But in the past, it was always in February. Now it's been moved to March. It's too bad because in February there was a livestock show. So I always got to go over in the morning and watch the livestock show, which was pretty impressive. But their sheep are a lot more well-groomed than ours are. So
Yeah,
now it's March.
yeah, for decades we were on President's Day weekend. And as our event grew, we needed more space. We started looking at moving into March. We still wanted to be earlier in the season, but we've now moved it to the third weekend in March, which has been fantastic. To still see for our first time over 500 attendees. I think it was great success.
No, I think it was, to some extent, it was that livestock show itself that there was not, they were growing also, or there really was not enough room in the fairgrounds for both of us to grow into the spaces that we needed.
Right.
So it was nice to have the fairgrounds largely to ourselves, be able to move into some of the bigger buildings, some of the more modern buildings, and to not have the same wafting scent of Western Bonanza competing with the delicious aromas of the Rhone varieties.
Yeah.
We used to have the events, of course, in San Francisco and then moved to Paso. And what I think is so impressive that it's in the center of a wine region, but it's really not a Paso event. I mean, it's really an organization event, and the attendees come from all over. It's amazing how many out-of-state people attend.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic this year to see the contingent from Texas show up. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, they're, plane rides of, 4 or 5 hours to come here and pour wines, and they absolutely loved it. I mean, they're a growing region. They really appreciate what we're doing and the focus that we're striving for. They want to be a part of this contingent, which was fantastic.
Well, speaking of a 5-hour plane trip to Texas, Larry just did that. So Larry, you were down in Texas.
I was. So we'll go backwards a little bit. So the national event that we used to hold in San Francisco was around the third or fourth weekend of March. So now our main event in Paso is kind of aligned with what our national event used to be, which is interesting. But yeah, I was just down in Texas. We held our first major event in Texas. We grew from about 4 Texas winery members to over 20 in a pretty rapid time frame. We had Texas members, winery members, in the past couple of years, and they had expressed interest in having us come to Texas, and we had no idea what to expect. And as we started exploring it, we were able to put together a fantastic event. Again, I'll backtrack a little bit. We have one not full-time employee, and that's it. And so what we're able to put together is all based on the enthusiasm of the board, all based on the enthusiasm of our winery members, and all based on the enthusiasm of volunteers. And it's pretty incredible what we are able to do. It's a limiting factor as well, but it's incredible the excitement that we get going with the events that we do put on. So we did an event in Hill Country in early April. We had 31 wineries pouring. 20 of them were from Texas, 10 were from California, and 1 was from Oregon. And we had over 300 people attend the event in Hill Country. We started with a seminar that I moderated of 6 different Rhone categories that took place at Halter Ranch's New Texas operation. And then we did the grand tasting. And then 2 days later in Austin proper, we did a trade tasting as well. So it was our first time being there. The reaction we had was absolutely fantastic. And they are excited to not only have us come back, but to hopefully expand the events as well. And so we're looking at doing potentially more events in Texas in 2026, should the timing, personnel, and everything else work out. But the enthusiasm at the event was pretty incredible. Everyone mentioned the electricity of the attendees and the wineries, and it was just great to see. It's as an organization, it's very fulfilling to see people enjoying themselves as much as they are with the types of products that we produce.
So you had an event both at a winery and in town, right?
We did. So, for those who don't know where Fredericksburg is, it's kind of in between Austin and San Antonio, about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half. It's really out there. It has grown tremendously, kind of in the same vein as Paso. They went from having a handful of wineries to having a lot of wineries. There is a decent amount of wine grapes grown in that region, but most of the grapes are actually grown in the high plains. So they're grown 4 or 5 hours away and then brought in. So many of the wineries that exist in Fredericksburg have very small vineyards, or maybe not even a vineyard, but have their tasting room there because that's where the mass number of people are coming.
So it must have been an interesting experience to come into an emerging wine region like that and see that level of enthusiasm for these varieties.
It was. I think we have that level of enthusiasm with many of the producers that we have here. It just kind of seemed magnified. They don't have a lot of national organizations going to Texas to put events on. What we did was pretty unique for them. They do have wine events that they put on, obviously, but to have our organization go in there, the wineries were just so ecstatic that we were willing to make the time and effort to have our organization there. And again, it's nice to see that and see that appreciation, and it just gets us excited about doing that event again, and looking at other places that we might be able to kind of mirror that experience as well.
So we do have another event coming up in Sonoma.
We do. We This will be the third year in a row, if I'm not mistaken, that we're doing events back in Northern California. Again, we had historically done them, and that ceased in about 2017, 2018 or so. But we've been fortunate to be at Klein Vineyards, and Fred Klein is also one of kind of the forefathers of the organization. And so we started doing an event there a couple of years ago, honored him with the Lifetime Achievement Award, and now we're coming back for the third time. So that's going to be at the very end of June. The night before, we have a dinner that's taking place at the Girl and the Figs, Sweet, I forget exactly what it is, but it's their separate operation. That's
Sweet D.
Sweet D. There we go. I knew it was a letter. I was close. That's just outside of downtown Sonoma. And that's where we honor our Lifetime Achievement Award. So this year it's John Buchenstein, who was the winemaker at McDowell Valley Vineyards, one of the first to plant Rhones in Northern California, and still has. I don't know who owns McDowell Valley anymore. Jason, you probably know more. Somebody might, but very early on planted Rhones. And so John was working with it. Him and Steve supposedly came up with the name, the Rhone Rangers, together. I'm not sure, but that's where the story goes. So we're honoring him. We're going to have 30 different wineries at that event on Sunday, June 29th at Klein. And those wineries will be from California, I believe from Oregon, and also from Texas. We have a couple of Texas wineries that are coming out. They love coming out and exposing people to their wines to kind of dispel the concept that Texas wine is an oxymoron.
So we've all been involved in the Rhone Rangers for quite a while, and it impresses me. It seems like the organization is just gaining more energy all the time. It's come a long way. I mean, we did like everyone else. There was a kind of the COVID period, but I really feel that we have left that period, and the organization has got more energy than ever and is growing. Larry, how do you see the future of the Rhone Rangers?
Well, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I've been on the board now 15 years. I think Jason is the only one on the board who has been there longer than I have. In fact, I know he is. And we've certainly gone through changes over the years. But I think a couple of things have happened. One, we've kind of really focused on who we are and what we do. And we don't do things just because we've done them in the past. Being a nonprofit organization with, again, one not full-time employee, we're very fiscally conservative, and we're also conservative time-wise as well. So we need to make sure that if we put a time and effort into something, it's going to be successful. It doesn't need to be profitable, but successful for us is getting the word out there, not losing any money. So, and I think that has been a huge change in what we've done over the last 6, 7 years. We have new people on the board that are bringing excitement as well. For instance, we mentioned Fred Klein. Well, his daughter, second generation, is now on the board. Again, just like Jason, second generation, and it's wonderful to see that as well. We don't tend to see that as much in the United States as you do over in Europe. Family businesses don't seem to run in the family for many generations. Something seems to happen. So it's wonderful to see that happening. But I think the excitement of Rhone varieties, people continue to want to look for something new and something different. And that's kind of what we've always offered. People haven't necessarily understood that. So one of the things we focused on early was Syrah. And Syrah was supposed to be the next great thing, and it never kind of got to be the next great thing at the level of Cab and at the level of Pinot. And so people know some of the varieties, but they still don't know all that we do. So we're fortunate at our events. Most people will know that Mourvedre is not a blend, that Picpoul is a variety, but there's so much upside potential for us. And that's one of the reasons I've been as enthusiastic about being a member of this board. I love to be involved with things that objectively make sense and objectively have kind of unlimited growth potential. It's just a matter of creating greater awareness for who we are and what we do.
I think you said it at the beginning. It's like you love an underdog. And I feel like, I mean, the Rhone Rangers, we're not the like unknown that we maybe were 25 years ago. But still, if you think of the percentage of the grapes that are grown in America that all of the Rhone varieties represent, it's what, 5% maybe? But like that is within that 5%, there's unbelievable diversity. There's so many, there's white grapes, there's red grapes, there's the best rosé grapes in the world. There are high acid, there's low acid. A lot of these varieties originated in places like Spain or the very south of France. So these are hot, sunny climates, and these are varieties that do well in warm, sunny places like California and Southern Oregon and Texas. I think they're varieties that are well positioned for the future. As we know that things are getting warmer and probably drier as well. These are grapes that have the potential to thrive in those sorts of climates. So I think it is exciting. It's an exciting moment for those of us who grow and make Rhone varieties. And I think that excitement does kind of flow through into the organization.
Tony, how are you experiencing the consumer reaction in the market to these varieties? How has that changed over the years?
Oh, from what I've seen, I mean, as we kind of alluded to, I think Syrah was kind of that gateway varietal that really kind of put a spotlight on Rhone. But now that we're starting to see, single bottlings of Senso, of Mourvedre, varietals that are typically blended, that just flourish on their own when they're done, not correctly, but done in a beautiful way. They're just really fun varietals, and so I think a lot of the consumers are really starting to lean and get more excited towards Rhone varietals because we have so many to offer and that they can explore.
Right, Jason, you have a national perspective on that. And also, you were kind of the pioneer out there too before a lot of these varieties and blends were talked about. What changes have you seen?
I think the American wine market is a lot more sophisticated than it's ever been, and I feel like you have to work a lot less hard to convince people to try something new than you used to. I remember in the early years when we were doing this, people would come in and they would just get this kind of like worried crease in their brows. Like, I don't know this. Like, I don't think I should, I don't know what to do. And I think as America has embraced wine culturally, and become more knowledgeable about it, just the willingness to try new stuff has grown with that. And I think one of the advantages that we maybe have as an organization is that it's not just one style or one color. I mean, the fact right now, if you look at the wine market is in a little bit of a down period for a couple of years. But one of the things that's not in a down period is whites, particularly high acid whites. And there are a lot of Rhone varieties that fit that profile really beautifully. So there are areas that people are excited to explore, and there's kind of, I think of Rhone varieties as being kind of something for everyone.
So, Larry, you are purchasing grapes. You could buy any kind of varieties you want. Why are you picking Rhone varieties?
Well, I do work with a couple of other varieties. I mean, I've been working mainly with Rhone varieties, but I'm a curious winemaker and I like to work with interesting varieties that produce interesting wines that all kind of have their own lane. And with Rhone varieties, it's to me, it's fascinating how you could work with all these varieties and they truly are distinct if you treat them all the same. And I want to work with wines, grapes that naturally make distinctive wines. I don't want to work and create quote unquote boring wines. And there's nothing boring about Rhone varieties whatsoever. From the lightest, crispest pick pool to a Marsanne or Roussanne that you'll age for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And almost, I like to say that it's like drinking honey without sweetness, that wide variety of textures and aromas and flavors, it's truly a smorgasbord of aromas and flavors. And that's what really continues to get me excited. And to match that with people's desire, again, to try something new. I mean, Jason hit on a couple of things. One, as we're getting warmer, these varieties are perfectly situated to be planted in areas that are getting warmer and too warm for certain varieties that they have been working with. There are certain grapes that are planted in regions that don't really make distinctive wines. You can work with Pinot Noir in a warmer climate. It doesn't necessarily make an interesting wine. It needs a cooler area. Well, we have Syrah that makes a really interesting wine in cool areas, but can make a beautiful wine in warmer areas as well. So we're able to explore. And for me in Santa Barbara County, with the microclimates that we have, I can work with Grenache from a cooler area, Grenache from a warmer area, and they're going to make radically different wines. And that continues to mystify me as a winemaker. And I want to continue to be mystified until the day I die. I don't want to necessarily know in advance everything that's going to happen. And Mother Nature is going to allow those changes to take place. And I just kind of bow down to that as much as possible.
So all of you are very busy people running companies and having to sell wine, but yet over the years you've devoted a lot of your time to the Rhone Rangers. What is it that's inspired you to make that investment? Anybody start?
I'll jump in. So this year will mark my 11th year, either volunteering or being on the board of the Rhone Rangers. For me, it's the community. I mean, the people that I get to interact with on a regular basis, not just as far as business is concerned, but personally, they're fantastic people. But every person brings their own story, their own vision, their own thoughts to help this organization move forward. And to me, that's inspiring. And I'll volunteer and be a part of this organization as long as I can.
I love that. I mean, my feelings echo that a lot. And one of the things that I always come back to is the idea that wine is not a zero-sum product. It's not like buying a car where, like, if you go out and you buy a Honda, you're not also buying a Mitsubishi. So if we can help other members of the Rhone community thrive, that just brings more people into the orbit that's going to make them likely to support us. And I think there are maybe some pieces of the wine world that are a little more guarded about what they do and why they do it, not so much into the working together, but the Rhone world, like everybody in it is generous with their time, generous with their ideas, excited to sit down and compare notes, bring something out of their cellar. And I think that that's something that's worth cultivating and trying to make sure continues. I feel like it's a part of paying it forward. We certainly all stand on the shoulders of incredible wineries who have come before us and who were generous with their experiences as we got off the ground. And I feel like this organization, as much as any that I'm a part of, has that kind of spirit in mind. So it is the community, it is the willingness to share, the willingness to get excited and inspired by what other people are doing, and the fact that it is an organization that I think is very effective at what it tries to do. It's I think we know kind of who we are as a group. We know that the sorts of events, particularly leading into education, is an important piece of what we can do. And I think that the organization has done it well, and it's been great to be a part of it.
And I'll just kind of echo what the two of them have said. I also want to mention Jason guilted me into joining the board way back in 2009. No, he didn't guilt me. I just had a conversation with him before joining the board.
You're welcome.
But what I can say from personally, when I'm on the board of directors of any organization, there's a responsibility, but there's a realization there's not that much time that is required. If you think of the whole week that goes by, or a whole month, or a whole year, but there's a limited amount of very intense time that needs to be put into that organization. And I have no problem putting that in whatsoever, because I feel it is such a worthy cause. And again, just to echo what everyone has already said, there's so much upside potential. And there's so much enthusiasm. It's really a matter of awareness and continuing education. And that is something we can do in spades, and it's something we have. And the world is a little easier in order to do that these days with social media. It's a little more crowded with social media, so we need to get a little smarter in terms of how we package our message. But as more people discover Rhone varieties, our orbit, as Jason said, just increases. So the enthusiasm that any one winery brings to us, it's kind of like the L'Oreal commercials back in the day, and they told someone, and so on and so on, and you see the boxes get bigger and bigger and bigger. That concept, it's one person, one winery at a time, expanding from there.
Yeah, I've been a member of the Rhone Rangers both when making wine in California and now in Oregon. And it's interesting that there's no difference. You're just part of the organization. I think there's a spirit for people that choose to take this path, to choose these varieties. There's a vision there, and that shared vision creates a bond. And then, that bond is shared within the organization. That's what makes it so worthwhile to be a part of. And it's been great for me being on the board all these years. All these people have, you make all these friends too over the years, like all these people that are joining us here today. There's friendships we've all worked together for many years, and many more to come, I hope. So Larry, to close out here, where can the people find out more information and about our upcoming tastings and so forth?
Sure. That we have a website, rhonerangers.org. So RHONE rangers.org. We have an Instagram page, we have a Facebook page, we have a YouTube page if people want to see videos of lots of different things that we've done. And as I said, we'll hopefully be doing more social media, kind of pushing things out through that way. But definitely the best way is to get onto the website. You can join as a sidekick, and therefore get more information directly from us. And again, that would be the best way to do it.
And Tony, you're getting geared up for the experience again already next March, right?
We'll set those meetings here in the next few months, and we're all, as we kind of alluded to earlier, we're not just doing the same thing over and over and over. So we're actually going to start, meeting earlier this year to see what we can do differently, and how we can expand and, make it interesting for, the guests that have really come almost every single year. I mean, Jason asks every year, raise your hand if you've been here, to every single one. And it amazes me that there's still probably about, 5 or 6 people that raise their hand that have been to every single one of these events. And so the more we can do as an organization to make it exciting for them, I think that's the least we can do. They've been supportive.
And just to finish up, Jason, the Lifetime Achievement Award, I think, is something special that the organization does.
Yeah, it is. And I think that recognizes that we do have a lot of those founding members of the movement still with us and still inspiring wineries today. So It started with Randall, as it absolutely should have. He was the first recipient. My dad was the second, and we've continued, not every year, but most years, to name a Lifetime Achievement Award winner and then honor them with a dinner in the summer. And it's a great way to both tie into the traditions that we're all a part of, and to continue to build that community. And like the wines that pass around the tables at these Lifetime Achievement Award dinners are just mind blowing. So it's one of, I think, these relatively few sorts of really high profile industry sorts of gatherings that you can buy a ticket to and come and be a part of a dinner and taste that first ever Syrah from the Bonnie Doon vineyard up in Santa Cruz that no longer exists, or an amazing Mourvedre from Klein that is 30 years in bottle. And it's a movement. It's a way of bringing the movement together. I think it was a really fun idea initially as a way of giving a nod to tradition, but it's also an opportunity to gather for a meal and celebrate the present and future of the Rhone Rangers, well thanking those who made it all possible.
Well, that seems a good spot to bring our conversation to an end today. Thank you all for joining in on this, and I look forward to seeing you at our next Rhone Rangers event.
Thank you, Craig, for organizing this and for all your work and helping make this organization a success.
Thanks all.
Thank you,
Greg.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, all.
We are happy to share this podcast from Rhône Vineyard, a Demeter biodynamic and regenerative organic certified winery in Oregon's Applegate Valley. We farm like the world depends on it by growing produce in our gardens and naturally crafting authentic wines. We will be sharing these in-depth podcasts several times a month. To learn more, I encourage you to visit our website at rhonevineyard.com and those of the Regenerative Organic Alliance at regenorganic.org and Demeter Biodynamics at demeter-usa.org. Thanks for sharing our voyage to regenerative agriculture with us.